G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. With that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and let's get right into it. I caught my wife letting our male neighbor rub lotion on her pregnant stomach. This literally happened this morning. I'm posting it here and hoping to vent and maybe get some perspective because I've been extremely upset all day and I can't process this productively. My wife is 8 months pregnant with our child. We live next door to another married couple who are in their late 30s. I don't like the guy. I've found him to be invasive and the weird type of friendly that almost seems to be prying and clingy. I'm not sure if that's clouding my judgment here or if this validated my beliefs about him. I left for work, decided on the way there I just wasn't feeling it, and called off. I stopped for breakfast before heading home to surprise my wife. 40 minutes tops. I get home, enter from the back door, and here's my wife and my neighbor sitting in our living room on the couch. She's turned toward him, fully clothed, but with her shirt pulled up over her very pregnant stomach, while he, facing her, is rubbing lotion on her stomach with both hands. They both froze before my wife asked how come I was back, and then said his name stopped by to borrow the toolbox while I was moisturizing, and wanted to know if he could feel the baby, so I said okay. I told him to get out before I put him out, and he left immediately. I tried to stay calm and talk to her and get the whole story. Neighbor's wife is apparently infertile. This is the first I've heard of it, which is amazing, considering the guy never shuts up about his personal woes, and he wanted to feel the baby. That's her story, and she's sticking to it. That's not good enough for me. My thought process is there is a big effing difference between feeling a baby for 10 seconds and coming into our home and rubbing lotion on my wife's stomach. If it was some close friend of ours, I might understand, but I dislike the guy, and my wife has never expressed any sort of closeness to him aside from passing pleasantries, and she's not the type to let anyone she isn't close to put their hands on her. So, in the span of a day, the guy goes from being a distant acquaintance of hers at best, to her deciding to invite him in and let him rub her? I also find it convenient that he showed up that early, right after I went to work, very shortly after his own wife also left for work. And he's never came over asking to borrow anything of mine before, yet 9:30ish in the morning and he urgently needs a toolbox? I don't believe my wife. This is the first time that my trust in her hasn't been strong enough. I don't believe her story because it makes no sense. When I told her that I'd be mentioning this to his wife, she was adamant I don't, as not to make more of it than it is. If it was innocent, what more is there to make? And even if nothing more is going on, I'm not okay with what I've seen. I'm not okay with him rubbing my unborn child in my home without me there. I know it's her body and her choice, but I'm not okay with this. It would be one thing to feel the baby kick, but he was sitting there, reclined, comfortably on our sofa, rubbing lotion on her with both leaned into their private conversation. I'm trying really hard to figure out how to express the fact that I don't believe her story without causing stress that would be dangerous for her to our baby. I don't want to pick a fight with her at this stage of her pregnancy, but at the same time, my mind is spinning and I'm not cool with what happened. Any advice would be appreciated. And now in the comments, you need to find out by the other wife what the husband was repairing with your toolbox. It was probably BS. I'm beginning to think the guy wasn't repairing anything. I think the whole issue may be that the neighbor's tool was in the wrong box. What if the neighbor is rubbing his own baby in her stomach? You seem to be joking, but I think it could be accurate enough to ask for a paternity test at this point. That could be a great conversation opener. Mention that he took your toolbox, and you're wondering how his work is going. Then if she's surprised, also say how that's strange, and mention the lotion thing. Or just be calm and straightforward about the rubbing lotion situation in the first place. Calmly explain why it makes him uncomfortable, and mention what the husband said about her being infertile. Phrase it like you're coming from a good place, and just wanted to let her know what you saw and her take on it. Look, I may be overreacting, but I saw and was told. What do you think? No need to play games when it comes to 2 marriages and a child. If it is true that she's infertile and he's rubbing another woman's belly, I would see that as hurtful from the other wife's side. So tread lightly for her sake. It sounds so weird. As someone who dealt with infertility and loss for years, yes, it would be painful to hear. But given the chances that this was completely innocent, I would much rather hear about it and have painful emotions re-infertility than have my husband be cheating on me and not know about it. As someone who is currently 8 months pregnant, I can't think of anyone who I would let run lotion on my belly besides my own husband, let alone some weirdo neighbor. Maybe my best girlfriend, but no one else. Their story stinks. And you're right, the timing of him needing to borrow tools and all of this transpiring right after both spouses left for work is suspect for sure. And now, onto the update. So this will be my only update, and I'm only posting it due to the amount of support I've gotten, as well as the numerous requests to do so. I didn't expect the response I got, and I've unfortunately seen it referenced on other subreddits, so I'm choosing to confront it. Most of you were right. Congratulations. I read through all of your replies and spoke to friends, and I stewed for a day. My wife stuck to her story, apologized for making me uncomfortable, and assured me that it wouldn't happen again. Suckup decided to leave a handwritten note in the mailbox specifically apologizing as well. I still didn't feel better, and the consensus was that I should speak to my neighbor's wife, who we're going to call Sally, so that's what I did. I watched my neighbor leave for work, and then I called my mother-in-law to come take my wife for a lunch and a girls' date so she could get out of the house. I left as usual for work, called off again, and went to stay with a friend. I got a text from my wife at around noon telling me that she was with mother-in-law and would be back by dinner. I went home and knocked on Sally's door. Suckup decided to tell Sally that I kicked him out and caused a scene about not wanting either of them speaking to us anymore because I was pissed about him helping my wife. Come to find out, both Sally and Suckup have been going over to my house while I was busy for the past few weeks, as my wife had approached her and asked if they would be willing to lend a hand with chores that she could no longer do alone. Sometimes Sally went over and did small tasks, or just hung out. Sometimes both, sometimes just Suckup. Wife told her that I knew, and was fine with it, and that's why she was confused when her husband told her his bullcrap about me being mad. She showed me where she texted my wife. She has her number, not mine. To clarify, and ask if she was welcome to come over, and my wife hasn't replied. And since I don't often see Sally or socialize with them, she just assured that her husband was telling the truth. She also admitted that she noticed Suckup and my wife becoming fast friends, and figured that it was due to the pregnancy, but thought that it was his way of dealing with their own inability to have kids, so she wrote it off. I told her what I walked in on, and I told her about the tools, which ended up being bullcrap too. Came to the same conclusions. Both cried, both hugged for the first time, both took turns denying and accepting, and talking each other down. Took a walk around the block together and conspired. She then planned to call Suckup at work and say that my wife messaged her confessing to the two of them having an affair and seeing what happened. I went back to my friends. Started having major panic attacks, thinking I screwed up. I was about to ruin my marriage, worrying that I might be wrong. A bit later, and I get a call from my wife screaming at me to find a way to leave work and come home. So I go home. Suckup called her, telling her what Sally told him. She told me I was crazy, I was a piece of crap, that she was considering leaving me, everything. Having a panic attack, thinking that I just ruined my entire life over nothing, while also trying to calm her down for the baby's sake. Impulsively told her that if she was leaving, I would still be requesting a DNA test. And that's when it all came down. Entire tone changed. Pleading, begging, apologizing, hyperventilating, holding me. Asking me how I found out while denying anything happened. I told her that it'd be okay, and asked if she'd talk to me if we went for a drive. She agreed. I took us to a parking lot, and we talked. Told her if there was any chance of anything happening that she needed to tell me what was happening, because I already knew a lot. She had screwed Suckup a handful of times before she was pregnant. Our baby might not be ours. Suckup had been coming by and doing daddy duties once in a blue moon, in case it's his. They haven't slept together in months. She said we could move away, that it's ours no matter what, that he had manipulated her. She admitted that she lied to Sally to justify Suckup going over for daddy duties. I asked her if she'd stay with mother-in-law for a few days while I calmed down. She agreed. I took her home, packed up some stuff, and dropped her off. I've cleaned out my essentials, and I'm in a friend's basement. Friend called her on my behalf and told her that if the baby is mine, I'll be dealing with it. If it isn't, it's on her. But either way, I'll be filing for divorce. My friends took my phone from me and deleted my social media. She's been calling my friends. Friends told her to F off. I spoke to my boss and he's been very understanding. Last I heard from Sally, Suckup hasn't been home and stopped responding to her calls and texts. I have nothing left. In less than a week, my life has fallen apart. The only thing keeping me here is the small chance that that baby is mine. I have nothing else. I woke up today disappointed that I woke up at all. I've never felt this alone. I haven't accepted any of it yet. I'm praying for the first time in my life that I can stop feeling this way and find strength. And now in the comments, thank you for updating us, even though you don't owe us anything. I hope that you already talked to a lawyer at this point. Hang in there, and good for you for standing up for yourself and not being a doormat. It was incredibly brave of you to confront this, and very kind to let us know. One day at a time, dude. One day at a time. Next up, prenatal paternity test. But wow, I don't see this marriage surviving, even if it is yours. Hugs. Quote, I have nothing else. Respectfully, sir, I disagree. Here is what you have. Quote, I spoke to my boss and he's been very understanding. I don't know where you work, but where I come from, most bosses would tell me to man up and leave that crap at the door. Not everyone has an understanding boss like that, man. You've got a treasure. Learn to value it. Quote, I'm in a friend's basement. Friend called her on my behalf. You've got a great friend who would share his or her home with you just because. I can guarantee you that not everyone is like that. Also, he/she called her on your behalf. Not many friends would want to get involved in that kind of drama. He or she is an absolutely solid person. And quote, my friends took my phone from me and deleted my social media. She's been calling my friends, and friends told her to F off. Now you have a small army. It might be small, but it is certainly made up of loyal elites, of friends to help you through this process. Not everyone can say the same. So, bro, you aren't alone. You don't have nothing. You still have your job, a job with an understanding boss, a good friend. Friends who take your side. You have everything a man could ever want. So chin up, my boy, and go grab that bull by its horns. Life may look like a black hole right now, but it is always darkest right before the dawn. And now, onto the final update. Extremely long story made slightly less long. A week after my last update, my soon-to-be ex-wife had our child, which I was at the hospital for. I'm the father. The first few weeks after my last update were extremely difficult, with family and friends on both sides adding to the drama. Thankfully, I've had an overwhelming amount of support from not only the vast majority of people I know in my personal life, but from all of you as well. My wife and I agreed to sit down and discuss things after she was discharged, in my friend's basement, with my friend upstairs in case I needed the support. She came over, and we basically said everything we needed to say. I exploded and said a lot of mean crap, most of which I regret, some I don't. She spent the whole time apologizing and begging me to take her back and give our family a chance to survive everything that happened. Went on for about an hour like this until I accepted that there was nothing left to say, and I have zero romantic love for her anymore, and she accepted that we need to focus on our daughter above all else. We're agreeing to figure out a custody split amicably, and to eventually co-parent more actively together when our wounds heal, but our marriage is over. She has the potential to be a wonderful mother, but she has failed me as a wife, and my sole focus right now is how to get myself mentally to where I need to be the best father possible. We plan to eventually sell the home, but right now I'm staying in an apartment. Sally is leaving Suckup. He's apparently staying with his mother and still refused to speak to Sally directly. According to her, the last thing that was passed along to her is that he understands what he did, he's sorry that he hurt her, he loves her, and won't contest a divorce. She's struggling to handle everything and lacks a support system, so we're developing a friendship. Mostly two wounded people leaning on each other, and I'm doing my best. She plans to start therapy too. And no, I don't plan to be anything more than platonic friends with Sally. Lovely woman, but no. I still haven't fully processed my new role as a parent. I think mentally I already convinced myself my child wouldn't be mine in case it ended that way. I plan to take classes and spend more time with my daughter doing early bonding. I'm terrified, but very happy. I know there is a lot left to do, and a lot of hurting left to go through, but I'm stable and a dad. That is what matters most. And now in the comments, by God, the trilogy is complete. That, honestly, is probably the best possible outcome after reading your earlier posts. I wish you much happiness in future. I agree. 2 happily divorced parents are better than 2 miserable married ones. I don't see how OP could have gotten past the betrayal. Strong emphasis on happy and divorced parents. Please, 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 OP, do everything you can to keep the co-parenting amicable. Think of as many future scenarios as you can and discuss in advance, i.e., vacations cutting into other parents' visitation and how to handle the conflict. Hammering out a specific agreement ahead of time makes future conflicts easier to manage. There is something about the audacity of cheaters parading their affair partners in front of their spouses and partners that is so much more anger-inducing than your usually clandestine affair. I'm not sure why. That's one of the stupidest cover stories that I've ever heard. I mean, y'all got caught red-handed. Just say, yeah, you caught us. And the neighbor dude put an apology note in his mailbox? I'd lose my crap. Jesus, the balls on these people. What a mess. I'm glad OP stood his ground. Boundaries are important, and so is respect. I almost wish that it wasn't his child, so he can get a clean break. Must have been very difficult to still proceed with the divorce, knowing you have a newborn to raise together. As bad as I feel for OP, my heart breaks for Sally. Imagine not only your husband cheating and possibly impregnating your neighbor while you're dealing with infertility, but also him taking you over to her house to do chores for her while he plays daddy. That is seriously screwed up. I hope she's doing a lot better these days. Our next post is titled, I've lied to everyone in my life for 20 years that I'm Jewish. I am not Jewish, not even a little bit. If you asked me any questions about Judaism, I couldn't tell you. But still, everyone thinks I'm Jewish. It all started in high school, 11th grade. I had just moved from California to the South, and it was a rough time. I was called every horrible name in the book because I talked different and got the crap beat out of me multiple times. Well, I slowly befriended some of the guys on the football team, and my closest friend was the center. We'll call him Greg. Now, Greg is a super chill guy compared to everyone around him, but he's still very, very racist and very open about all of his opinions. Well, one day I'm driving Greg and a few other football players home from school, and he makes a comment about synagogues. Without even thinking, I mentioned that I've been to one, and this is where it all started. This prompted one of the other guys to joke that I was a Jew, and trying to be chill, since these were the only friends I had, I went, haha, yep, I'm Jewish. And then that's when it all went downhill. Greg told everyone on the football team how his new friend from California was a Jew, and they all believed it since most of them thought there were only Jews in California anyways. And the football players spread that to the rest of the school. At this point, I still thought that it was a joke, and everyone just jokingly called me Jewish. So I just kept going with it. Then I became known as the Jewish kid, and started to actually become popular, since everyone wanted to be friends with a different kid. And the fact that my dad had money, a lot compared to the poor area that I went to school, so I could afford to buy nice things, and people tend to be attracted towards that. And so being Jewish almost became my identity. It became who I was. So whenever someone would ask my religion, I just automatically told them I was Jewish. Fast forwards to the end of high school, and the counselors are walking people through scholarship stuff, and my counselor calls me into his office and hands me a slip for a $5,000 Jewish American scholarship. Now, as soon as I read Jewish American scholarship, I was going to walk out and throw it out, but he made me sit down and fill it out with him, and then took it from me to submit it. I felt horrible for even doing it, but somewhat relieved when I heard they only gave it to people who were also ethnically Jewish, so I knew I wouldn't get it. I got it. I received a letter in the mail saying that I was chosen as the winner of this $5,000 scholarship. I got accepted to Dartmouth due to the fact that I worked my ass off in high school and was the valedictorian, though my competition wasn't plentiful to say the least. But I never thought that I would have been able to afford it, but this scholarship was huge in helping me towards that. I considered spilling everything then, declining the scholarship, telling everyone at school, telling almost every single form that I've filled out, saying that I'm not actually Jewish. I decided to tell my dad and ask him for advice, as he's always been a guy that you can talk to about anything whatsoever. So I tell him everything. I tell him about the joke, then the lie, and then everything. And now the scholarship, which I hadn't told any of my family about because 1, I never thought I'd get it, and 2, they'd question why a very not Jewish person is getting a Jewish American scholarship. And as soon as I told my father, he looked me dead in the eyes with the most serious, disappointed face, and then burst into tears laughing. The way he reacted, it must have been the funniest thing he'd heard in his life. He told me that he had gotten a letter in the mail asking if I was ethnically Jewish for a scholarship that I had entered, and being the person he is, he just saw the chance for college money and went, "Yep, Jewish," and that was apparently all they need. So my dad convinced me to keep the money and go to my dream college, and I did. As soon as I arrived at the university, I was met with some people from the group that gave me the scholarship, some Jewish American organization funded by wealthy Israelis, and they told me, enlisted me into all these Jewish clubs, and they got me set up in a synagogue, and I met everyone there. I'd later learn 2 of these people there would be my professors, who were very Jewish. And finally, they told me that they would set me up with the whole birthright thing, where they fly American Jews out to Israel. I was so shocked. I was at my dream school, plus I was being hit with all of this. It was too much. I thought about coming clean a lot of times, but I feel like all the people around me would suddenly feel betrayed and leave me. I became good friends with a lot of these people in these Jewish clubs. I bonded with my teachers a lot better since they believed I was Jewish. I met the most beautiful Jewish girl, who I met through her mother when she came up to me in a cafe, asked if I was Jewish, since I was with the local rabbi, and I said yes, and she told me that I'd love her daughter. We went on a date and instantly hit it off. And I got a free trip to Israel. I can't deal with this. What? All the while, I was dealing with severe depression, since I felt horrible every second of every day. In addition to the already enormous amounts of stress university puts on you, I came so close, so many times, to just throwing myself off a bridge or tall building, but I could never bring myself to do it. I managed to get all the way through 11 years of college to get my doctorate, got a job at a history museum back on the West Coast, married that Jewish girl, had a Jewish wedding with her entire family, and my 2 parents. My dad had spilled the beans to my mom about 2 days after I told him, and she also found it equally as funny. We've had 3 little Jewish babies, the museum put me in charge of organizing and creating a huge Holocaust and Jewish American history exhibit, even though that's not my specific field, even in the slightest. And in a few months, when the current curator retires at the end of '96, I will hopefully be taking his place. He's been training me for the job. I've worked there the longest, and I've made sure that I'm damn good at my job. My life has turned out great, but deep down, it will always haunt me that my entire life is built on a lie. My kids' lives, my life, my wife's life, all came from a joke in a car 20 years ago. I was never going to tell a soul about this, but today my oldest son, he's 9, told me that he doesn't think he believes in God, and I told him that I agreed. It was the first time in 20 years that I told the truth about my religion and didn't lie. My son wants to tell his mom that he doesn't want to continue being Jewish, and I might use this as my way of getting out as well. I told him that we'd tell her tomorrow at dinner, and he seems almost excited as I am, but equally as nervous. Wish us luck, I guess. I am still unsure if I should tell her the whole truth, or if I should just leave it with that I no longer want to be Jewish. Edit. Just for clarification, because people have been questioning my use of the word university in place of college, Yes, I know they are not the same thing. I've just been surrounded by British people lately, and they all use university, so I've been saying that instead of college. It's a recently adopted habit, and I can assure you I'm American. Born in Folsom, California, moving to Orange County, and then to Santa Clarita, California, where I lived for most of my younger life until my family moved to Americus, Georgia. I can assure you I'm definitely American. And as for my wife not finding out from my side of the family, it's mainly due to the fact that we don't talk to my side of the family for personal reasons, and I haven't talked to them in years, and she's only ever met them once at the wedding, but she also wants nothing to do with them. I've decided that I'm just going to tell her that I'm not Jewish. I won't tell her that I lied about being Jewish for all these years, but I'm just going to tell her that I'm not Jewish. Someone also said that since both sides of my family are Czech, there's a good chance I'm Jewish, so I'm thinking of doing a DNA test soon. Also, when I said I know nothing about Judaism, that was an extreme exaggeration. I've obviously picked up a lot of knowledge over the years, and I think my wife may have an idea, due to the fact, whenever a Jewish holiday is coming up, she'll remind me about it and tell me when it is, / what it's for, if I don't already. I'll update later tonight on how it goes. Edit 2. So I talked to her, and I decided to just tell her everything. And it didn't go like I expected. She told me she had a feeling I wasn't Jewish from the beginning, but never married me just because I was Jewish, but married me for me, regardless of my faith. She said that she was sorry that I felt like I had to hide it from her for so many years, and that I don't have to pretend to be Jewish if I don't want to. But like a lot of people have commented, I do feel sort of culturally Jewish now. I definitely identify more as a member of the Jewish community than I do any others. We're not going to pressure any of our kids into Judaism, and we're going to let them decide what they want to do for themselves. And my wife and I agreed that it would be best if we gave back, since all the opportunities afforded to me came from the Jewish community. We're going to get involved with an organization, and we're donating to 3 different scholarships for $5,000 each, and try to help fund birthright trips whenever we can. I'd like to thank everyone who has commented with advice, and hopefully this can be a new chapter in my life. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.